I'm sitting in a room that isn't mine, even though they tell me it is now. I didn't come here because I wanted to. I came here because everyone agreed it was the right place, and I didn't have the strength to argue anymore. I'm not angry as I say that. I'm tired. There's a difference you learn late in life. This place is called a nursing home. It's clean. It smells like soap and boiled vegetables. The people who work here try, most of them. They call me sweetheart and sir in the same sentence, which always makes me feel like I'm both a child and a ghost at the same time. I want to say this carefully because I know some people are helped by places like this. I've seen it. I've seen people who are safer here than they would have been alone. I've seen families who finally slept at night because someone else was watching over their mother or father. But nursing homes are not suitable for everyone. No one said that out loud when they brought me here. They talked about safety, about meals, about nurses on call, about how lonely I must be in my house now. They said all the practical things, sensible things, the kinds of things you can nod at, even when something inside you is quietly folding in on itself. I didn't know how to explain what I was losing because I didn't fully understand it myself yet. I understand it now. Right now, my world fits into a narrow routine. Breakfast tray at 7, pills at 8, a walk down the hallway if my knees cooperate, lunch, more pills, television that no one is really watching, dinner, night. The days don't hurt. That's the strange part. They don't hurt. They just don't belong to me. When you're young, you think pain comes from loud things, accidents, arguments, breakups, death. But the worst losses I've known arrive quietly, dressed as help. I tell this story now because I don't have much time left to tell it, and because I think there are people listening who still believe they'll notice when something important is slipping away. I believe that too. I grew up in a small house where doors were always open and nothing was ever truly private. My mother cooked without recipes. My father fixed things he didn't really understand. Neighbors came in without knocking. We didn't call it community. It was just life. When I was young, I wanted out. I wanted space. I wanted something that felt like progress. I got married at 24. My wife was patient in a way I didn't recognize as rare until much later. She folded my shirts the same way every time. She remembered birthdays without writing them down. She listened, even when I talked about things that didn't matter. We worked hard. Both of us. We bought a house that needed more fixing than we admitted. We raised 2 children who grew faster than we were ready for. I don't look back at those years with shame. We did what seemed right. I worked long hours because that's what men did. She handled the home because that's what women did. We told ourselves we'd rest later. Later always felt close enough to touch. I missed things, but I didn't know I was missing them. A school play I couldn't leave work for. A conversation that started with "never mind" and ended there. a look on my wife's face that I noticed but didn't stop to understand. Nothing exploded. Nothing collapsed. That's important to say. Our life wore down instead of breaking. By the time the children were grown, we were polite strangers who knew each other's habits, but not each other's thoughts. We sat in the same room and did separate things. We called it comfort. If someone had asked me then if I was lonely, I would have said no. I had a job, a house, a wife. I was surrounded. Loneliness doesn't always mean being alone. When my wife died, it wasn't dramatic. It was an illness that took its time. Hospital rooms, chairs that folded out into beds, paper cups of water. She held my hand at the end, and I remember thinking how small her fingers felt. I remember wishing I'd held them more when they were warm and strong. After she was gone, people checked on me. At first, often, then less. They had their own lives, and I told them I was fine, because it was easier than explaining what fine actually meant. I stayed in our house longer than I should have. I knew every creak in the floor, every window that stuck, every mark on the wall. The house remembered us, even when no one else did. But houses get quiet in a way that feels personal. I started forgetting small things, where I put my glasses, whether I'd taken my pills. I burned a pot once and sat there staring at it, not understanding how I'd let it happen. That's when the conversation started. Not with me, around me. My daughter said she worried. My son nodded. They talked about options, about places, about how they couldn't be there all the time. They weren't wrong. That's the part that makes this hard. They found this place. They showed me pictures, bright rooms, smiling residents, activities listed on a board. They asked me what I thought. I said, if you think it's best. I wish I hadn't said that. Or maybe I wish someone had asked a different question. The day I moved in, my house was emptied by people who didn't know the stories behind the objects. They wrapped dishes in newspaper. They boxed photographs without looking at them. I watched, and I didn't stop them. Here, my room is neat, too neat. The bed is narrow. The chair is functional. I brought a few things, a lamp, a picture of my wife, a sweater that still smells faintly like home. I didn't realize how much of myself was tied to small choices. When to eat, when to sleep, when to go outside. Here, those decisions are made gently, efficiently, without asking. People think freedom is about big things, money, travel, independence. But freedom at the end of life is often about tiny, ordinary moments. Opening a window when you feel like it. Sitting in silence without someone checking on you. Eating toast at midnight because you can't sleep. Those things don't fit well into schedules. I see other residents here. Some thrive. They like the structure, the company, the sense that someone is nearby. Others fade quietly. There's a man down the hall who used to be a carpenter. His hands still move like they're measuring wood. There's a woman who sings hymns under her breath all day long. There's another who stares at the door every afternoon, convinced someone is coming. We don't talk much. Conversations here feel borrowed, temporary. Everyone knows how this ends. The staff changes, faces rotate. You start a story and finish it with someone else. I don't blame anyone here. That's important too. This place does what it's designed to do. But it's designed for bodies, not histories. No one here knows how I took my coffee for 40 years. No one knows the joke my wife and I shared about the neighbor's dog. No one knows which chair in the living room was mine. Those things sound small. They aren't. The turning point for me came one afternoon when my daughter visited. She sat in the chair across from my bed, checking her phone between sentences. She asked if I was eating enough, if the nurses were kind. She looked relieved when I said yes. As she stood to leave, she said, "At least you're not alone here." After she left, I sat with that sentence for a long time. I realized then that we had different definitions of alone. I am surrounded here, yes, but I am unseen in ways I didn't know were possible. I don't have a kitchen to stand in and remember my wife. I don't have a yard to look at and think about the children running through it. I don't even have the silence of my old house, which at least belonged to me. What can't be fixed now is the time I assumed I had. I assumed I would adjust. I assumed this would feel temporary, even though everyone knew it wasn't. I assumed comfort would replace meaning. It doesn't. I won't go back home. I know that. The house is gone. The strength is gone. The world has moved on in ways I can't keep up with. Acceptance comes, but it's not graceful. It's practical. You stop fighting because fighting requires energy you no longer have. I don't regret letting my children choose. They did what they could with the information they had. I regret not speaking when I still had the clarity to explain what mattered to me. I didn't know how to say that safety without familiarity feels like exile. If you're listening to this and you're younger, I don't want you to panic or promise anything. I just want you to notice the small negotiations you make with yourself. The ones where you say, "It's fine for now." The ones where you trade presents for convenience. The ones where you assume someone else will know what you need later. Later is quieter than you think. If you're caring for someone old, ask them questions that don't have easy answers. Ask them what makes them feel like themselves. Ask them what they're afraid of losing, not just what they're afraid of. And if you're old like me, still in your own place, don't underestimate the value of your ordinary days. They are not empty. They are full of you. I don't know how much time I have left. None of us really do, but the margins are thinner now. I spend my evenings watching the light change through a window that doesn't open all the way. Sometimes I talk to my wife's picture. I tell her about the people here, about the man with the carpenter's hands, about the way the hallway smells after dinner. I tell her I understand things now that I didn't before. When the lights go out at night, the building settles. You can hear coughing, someone calling for help, a cart rolling in the distance. I lie still and think about the sound of my old front door closing, the way it used to stick in winter. Those memories are mine. They can't take those yet. If this meant something to you, if it stirred a thought you've been setting aside, sit with it a while. You don't have to do anything right away. Just don't assume there will always be another chance to choose. I'll be here tomorrow and the next day until I'm not. That's the truth of it. I'm still here. That feels like something I should explain, but I don't know how to do it without sounding ungrateful. Every morning I wake up, and there's light coming through the same narrow window, and a nurse asking if I slept well. Most days I say yes. It's easier than sorting through what sleep means now. People think the hard part of getting old is the body giving up. The knees, the lungs, the heart. That's what they prepare you for. What no one really prepares you for is how your inner life keeps going long after your outer life has been simplified. I have a lot of time to think here. Too much some days. Time stretches when nothing belongs to you anymore. I sit and replay conversations I didn't know were important when they happened. Small ones, ordinary ones. Like the afternoon my wife asked if I wanted to sit on the porch with her, and I said maybe later. There was always a later back then. Later felt endless. Here, later is just another scheduled hour. I watch other residents come and go. Some arrive alert and talkative, carrying pieces of their old lives in boxes and bags. Over time, those pieces get smaller. Photos disappear. Shoes go unworn. Voices soften. I've learned not to ask too many questions, because the answers don't change anything. There's a woman 2 rooms down who used to be a teacher. I know this because she told me the same story 3 times in one afternoon. Each time she said it like it was the first. When she finished, she waited for approval, the way teachers do when they've finished explaining something. I nodded every time. We don't correct each other here. Correction assumes a future. When I first arrived, I tried to participate. Group activities, bingo, chair exercises. I wanted to prove I wasn't giving up. But after a while, I realized how exhausting it was to pretend enthusiasm. It's not that I dislike people. I just don't recognize myself in these versions of days. At home, I used to wake up and decide what kind of day it would be. Even if the decision was nothing, it was still mine. Here, days arrive pre-made. Breakfast tastes the same no matter what mood you're in. The staff rotates often. New faces, new names. Some are kind in a deep way. Some are kind in a professional way. Both matter, but they're not the same. Every now and then, one of them asks about my life before, where I worked, how many children I have. They listen politely, but I can tell when the question is part of training rather than curiosity. I don't hold that against them. They have many rooms to get through, many stories brushing up against them every day. But a life isn't meant to be brushed past. The hardest moments come in the evening. That's when homesickness shows up, even if you don't have a home anymore. The light fades and the hallway quiets, and I remember how evenings used to feel full of possibility, even when nothing special happened. I remember sitting at the kitchen table while my wife washed dishes, the sound of water running, the radio low in the background. Those moments didn't feel meaningful then. They feel enormous now. I didn't lose those moments in a single decision. I lost them by assuming they were permanent. That's what I want people to understand. Loss doesn't always come as a theft. Sometimes it comes as a slow handover. People mean well when they say places like this are the next stage. It sounds orderly, reassuring. But stages imply progress. This isn't progress. It's a narrowing. And narrowing isn't always wrong. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it keeps people alive. But alive isn't the same as living in a way that still feels like yours. I think about the word care a lot. Care is what brought me here. Care is what keeps me fed and medicated and clean. Care is also what stripped away the parts of my day that made me feel human. Those two truths sit side by side, and I don't know how to separate them. My children visit when they can. They bring news from the outside world, promotions, grandchildren growing taller, houses being renovated. I listen, and I smile at the right moments. I don't tell them how quiet it gets after they leave. I don't tell them how the silence here feels different from the silence at home. At home, silence had history. Here, it has rules. Lights out at a certain time, doors checked, rounds made. Even loneliness is monitored. I'm not saying I should have stayed home at all costs. That would be dishonest. I know I needed help. I know I couldn't manage alone forever. What I wish is that we talked more honestly about trade-offs, about what is gained and what is lost, about how safety sometimes comes at the price of selfhood. I wish someone had said, "This will keep you alive, but it may shrink your world." Maybe I would have chosen the same. Maybe not. But at least it would have been a choice I understood. Now, my choices are small. What shirt to wear, whether to sit by the window or the door, whether to sleep or think. Thinking is the dangerous one, because thinking brings back the feeling of being someone who belongs somewhere. At night, when the building settles, I imagine walking through my old house one last time. I imagine touching the door frame where we mark the children's heights. I imagine sitting in my chair, not because it's assigned, but because it's mine. These are harmless thoughts, I suppose. They don't change anything. But they remind me that a life is more than its final arrangement. If you're still making plans for your later years, don't just plan for care. Plan for meaning. Plan for familiarity. Plan for the small freedoms that won't look important on paper. And if you're already caring for someone old, listen when they talk about home, even if it sounds repetitive, even if it sounds impractical. Home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's the last proof that a life was lived a certain way. I don't know how this ends. I only know how it feels right now. And right now, I want to be honest. This place is keeping me alive, but it is not keeping me whole.